Welcome. We are so happy that you are here with us. Parents and guardians, grandparents, and the young people who chose to come and be educated tonight, we are so grateful that you are here. The next 2 hours, you're going to hear some things that are hard, but they're necessary for us to hear, to really get a grasp on how big a problem child exploitation is, especially in the online world. And so I'm proud to be here as superintendent of Santa Rosa County School District. I'm Karen Barber. And I want to just recognize the partners that we have. Magdalene's, of course. They have been spearheading this with our school district. This has been in the making for over a year now, based on our Student Services Department and Cindy Peden, and our coordinator for mental health went to a training a year ago, heard about this message, and felt like we needed to bring this to Santa Rosa County. So grateful to Cindy as well for her leadership. Also want to recognize, of course, the Sheriff's Department, Department of Children and Families, the Kids House, big counseling and consulting. Those resources are out in the lobby, and those folks are here as support or for you to get more information and more resources that can help our students and help our families be safe. So before I turn it over to Angie from Magdalene's, I want to let you know, internet safety is so important and playing it safe, right? And there are things in our school district that I want you to know that we do, many of them required by federal law, but they are the right thing to do. One of them is that we have to have a firewall, and the firewall in our school district is called Lightspeed. And that firewall, whether a student is using their own device from home when they get on our network, or if they're using a school device at school, this firewall will block harmful websites. So it blocks students from going to a site that might be pornographic, that might have weapons, that might solicit drugs or drug use, or any other site that is not conducive to education. So that filter is in place at all times. Now, in addition to that, we have an analyst for our firewall, Lightspeed. And that individual is employed, and their job is to constantly monitor that filtering system, Lightspeed. And Lightspeed looks for words or phrases that might alert us. It might be that a student is planning something violent. Those words or phrases, we get that alert, it goes to the analyst, and they determine, is this a threat? Or is this a false positive? Maybe it's that the student is writing something or trying to research something related to self-harm. Well, we really need to know about that so that we can intervene for that student, notify their family, and get them the emotional support that they need. Maybe they're trying to access inappropriate graphics or images. That firewall should stop that, but if something should slip through, then that firewall and our analyst are quickly able to, in real time, identify who the student is, where they are, so that immediately we can notify our school administrators and guidance counselors, and we can notify our Student Services Department so that we can immediately address what's going on with this student. Do they need resources and support? Is there disciplinary action needed because of what they're doing on our network? So I want you to know that is in place. So from the school perspective, we're able to monitor and provide real-time action to what's happening. So I really want you to know that those things are in place, and I hope that helps you. But we can only affect what's happening at school, right, with the network. We need families' help to understand the dangers that are out there for our students, our children, and to make sure that we're working together with you. So I'm very, very grateful to all of you for being here. I'm the mom. I have 4 children, and my children are all grown now. When my kids were in school, remember stranger danger? Stranger danger, what we taught our kids, but they were you could see that person, that stranger. You knew what to look for. That's no longer the case, right? Now the strangers can be invisible. They can be somebody that's lying or coercing somebody into something and tricking them and manipulating them. It's a whole different ballgame. I have a 6-year-old grandson. I want him to be safe. And so, trust me, I'm having lots of conversations with my children about keeping my grandson safe, limiting the screen time, because one of the things you'll hear tonight from Dr. Doan is that excessive screen time is not good for anybody's brain, but especially for children, right? And also, we know that the internet can be a place that is very unsafe for us, and we need to put some safeguards in place. So I'm so happy that you're here tonight. Thank you again. I want to thank our panel, Julie Doan, Cindy Peden, Major Todd Bobie, Detective Ashley Thompson, Carissa Phelps, and Dr. Andrew Doan. Thank you so much again for being here.
Aired an investigative report about sex trafficking in schools, children being recruited, coerced, and deceived into this organized crime ring right here in Central Florida. News 6 investigative reporter Erica Washington is continuing her in-depth report on sex trafficking. And Erica, you spoke to another survivor, but instead of being recruited at school, it was a family member who sold her into this.
Matt, Savannah's story is just heartbreaking. In this case, she told me that a family member was actually her mother who sold her for drugs. And Savannah just started sharing her story 3 years ago so she can help other young girls and boys who may be sex trafficking victims.
Both of my parents were drug addicts and alcoholics.
Savannah Parvu's childhood innocence was stolen, going with her mom to buy drugs.
When she didn't have money, she would prostitute herself for the drugs. When I was 11, I went with her one time and they offered her money for me instead. And so she's like, yeah, you can do whatever.
For $10 worth of crack, Savannah became a victim of sex trafficking.
She would leave me there and they would take me to other places, or they would have people come there and sell me.
Savannah would be kept for days before returning home to her mother.
I asked her, why she let them do that to me, and she said so that she wouldn't have to do it anymore.
At 14, Savannah thought she was finally safe when placed in a foster care facility.
The staff there were friends with my mom's drug dealers, and so it happened while I was in foster care.
The people that were supposed to take care of you sold you for drugs.
When I would have doctor's appointments, instead of going to the appointments, they would reschedule them and take me to the drug dealers' houses.
Metropolitan Bureau of Investigations, or MBI, takes the lead on sex trafficking cases.
These are people out to make money any way they can.
Ron, the drugs and sex trafficking often go hand in hand.
The drug trade and the drug addiction and the human trafficking are directly intertwined.
Agents say pimps try to get their victims hooked on drugs.
Here's how you're going to make the money. I'm going to post you on the internet. I'm going to take you to this bar. I'm going to drop you off in this corner. When you've made X amount of money today, then you come back to me and I'll get your drugs for you.
And agents say for traffickers, selling sex is easier than drugs.
They're now realizing that they can take a female and abuse her over and over and over again and make money off of her, whereas if they're selling drugs, they sell the drugs and have to go get more drugs.
According to MBI, Florida has the 3rd highest number calls into the National Human Trafficking Hotline number.
You could triple the number of investigators I have for human trafficking and I would keep them all busy. I mean, there's that much out there.
As for Savannah, a high school counselor stepped in her life and saved her.
There's never justice, because you have to live with it for the rest of your life.
Now, there's so much more to Savannah's story, and she told me once when she was sold for sex, the people who bought her didn't realize how young she was, that she was just a little girl, and threatened to tell police. Well, that pimp shot and killed that man and then told Savannah if she talked, he would shoot and kill her too. Now, I have more of Savannah's interview and also the number to the human trafficking hotline on our Facebook page. Matt and Julie.
Oh, terrible story. Thank you very much, though, Erica.
Thankfully, a conscientious guidance counselor noticed something in Savannah and asked the right questions and helped her be rescued from a dire situation. Now, Savannah doesn't live right here in Santa Rosa County, but she lives in a neighboring county. And now I'm happy to say that she is the CFO of an organization, and she is also lobbying our Florida legislature for laws that will help protect victims and will also help bring mandatory education to hotels and to other entities so that this is not overlooked as it was in her case. Now, tonight, of course, you're here to hear about online risks, and you're going to hear a lot about that. In fact, because there are 500,000 to 1 million predators online at any given time, there is no better time for us to be informed about what is on the other side of the screen of our children. But we wanted to bring Savannah's story to you, and she gave us permission to do so that we understand what all of the possible threats are to our children. Her situation was familial trafficking, where a family member exploited her for drugs. And sometimes family members exploit for other reasons. Maybe they need basic necessities, shelter, food, other necessities. It's just an atrocity for me to tell you that it is the fastest form of trafficking in our community right now, is familial trafficking. I'm Angie Ishii, the executive director of Magdalene's, and we're so thrilled to partner with the school district, so thankful for the focus that Dr. Barber is putting on this education for parents, for grandparents, and opening it up to the whole community and for students as well. The nonprofit Magdalene's that I represent not only brings educational opportunities like this to the community, because we just find that it's hard to fight what you don't know really exists, but we also work alongside local survivors to help equip them to live sustainably independent. One of the greatest tools of a perpetrator is a silent community. I want to say that again because it resonates so much with me as a parent and as a grandparent. One of the greatest tools of a perpetrator is a silent community, and Magdalene's refuses to let our community be silent. So I'm so glad that you joined us tonight, because what that tells me is that you want to also be informed by this esteemed panel so that you too can make sure that our children are safe. So thank you for being here.
Today's date's November the 12th, 2013. The time now is approximately 7:28 in the morning. This is Investigator R.D. Vice President is Detective Joe Phillips with Virginia Beach Police.
Do you remember that time period?
Yes.
Can you start to tell the jury what happened?
I had, a friend request from this Steve Crofton guy.
Prior to that date, had you ever had contact with a Steve Crofton?
No.
For the first time in history, we're letting strangers interact with our kids in the back of our car, in their bedrooms, in their homes.
That online environment has just created this access to children that was never there before.
Physiologically, they don't understand who is out there and what people are capable of.
It's been called a new form of sexual assault, online sextortion.
For HSI, the increase that we've seen is definitely sextortion.
Sextortion is probably the fastest growing crime in the world.
That's right, sextortion attempts are skyrocketing.
We see cases come in for children as young as 8 years old, 9 years old. We're talking elementary school children.
As a predator, you can actually create an online profile that matches the preferences of that child.
He got information from our chats through my computer, information about my mom, about my sister. He had Google images of my home.
From 16 years ago to today, there is no mold. Anybody from any walk of life could be involved in this. We've had doctors and police and clergy.
Simply the fact of who the offender was very shocking in this case.
We intercepted a letter he wrote to the Chinese embassy in Washington. If they would break him out, he would give them all the information on the F-18.
When you talk to me, please don't lie to me. You're a grown man, you're an officer in the Navy.
These grown men are going after these young girls, and they try to kill them. Might not be in their intention, but they're killing them. And we have to stop it.
I would literally do anything to save one. There's so many kids out there that need saving that there's just not enough of us to do it.
Thank you all for coming. My name is Julie Doan. My husband, Dr. Andrew Doan, and I are in that documentary. Steve Crofton was not a surfer boy from California. He was a 30-something F-15 pilot, and he sextorted so many children. F-18? Sorry, F-18. I don't know about airplanes. I'm not the military person he is. So tonight we're going to be discussing some pretty heavy topics. And if you are triggered or need to speak with someone, we have counselors outside in the lobby. And we have guidance counselors available as well. Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office is also here. And all of their tables are labeled, so you'll be able to find them easily. We have a panel of experts here who will introduce themselves and tell you about their involvement in the fight against human trafficking. They're also going to give you helpful tips to take with you so that you can have action, because the information is very important, but we want to live in action, right? We don't want to just come here and be informed. We need to do something. So we're going to wrap up this evening with some more we're just going to give you lots of information, lots of tips, lots of tricks. We're going to educate you as well. So I hope this evening is very, very informative for you all, and that you leave well educated and ready to do something. So we're going to start with Cindy.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Good evening. My name is Cindy Peden. I am the coordinator of mental health services for Santa Rosa County District Schools. And I had the pleasure, although it is a very heavy, mature topic, of attending Magdalene's conference last year. And Dr. Doan and Carissa were on the panel, and the little snippet that you saw just a moment ago with the pilot, we watched the full video on that, and we were awestruck. So the education that I took away from that event last year just got my mind rolling. I got in the car, my husband looked at me and he said, "You've got a job to do. You've got to figure out a way to bring this to parents and to our community, and to do everything that we can to help keep our kids safe." And thankfully, I'm in a district where I have a champion for a superintendent, and I go to her with some crazy ideas and she says, "Let's do it." So this has been a brainchild that has been almost a year in the making, and I couldn't be more happy for it to come to fruition. One of the things that I see in the role that I serve in now, I was a teacher and then a school counselor for many years. I'm in my 20th year of education. But moving into the role I'm in now as coordinator of mental health services, we serve almost 30,000 students with a wide variety of needs. And over the course of the 4 years that I've been in this role, we continue to see just an escalation in percentages of our students who have just so many struggles in mental health, and just their mental health is declining. And one of the main catalysts for that is the cell phone and social media. And I am a parent myself. I've been guilty of this. I've given my children the world in the palm of their hand, which is a wonderful tool, but I wasn't educated enough to be equipped to the dangers. And the way that technology is evolving so quickly, we just need to be more vigilant and more aware and ready to stand in the gap and help save our children. We have so many parents who will come and, talk with us about, "I had no idea, my child was talking to someone online and formed a relationship with someone that they thought was XYZ, and that's not who that was. And so I took the phone and they were on restriction, and then they had another phone and I took that phone, and then they had another phone." And cases like that where students are meeting predators online that are providing them with this technology. or great kids from great households with great, educated, supportive, attentive parents. You know, captains of athletic teams, cheer teams, and they get misled by people who they think are a friend that they've never physically met, but they think that they're a friend, and then before you know it, they're in a situation that's a very mature situation, and they aren't equipped to make the right decisions, but they're so fearful of consequences or of what could happen by being blackmailed or sextorted that they're not going to us. They're not coming to, you know, parents or law enforcement. They're going to maybe their peers for help, but many of them are not even going to their peers because they're so ashamed and embarrassed. So what we want to do tonight is bring that darkness to light. We want to educate you. We want to continue to educate ourselves, and we want to partner with you to keep our children safe. And we just are so thankful that you're here this evening.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Todd Bovey. I'm a major at Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office over our Criminal Investigative Division. And appreciate the school board and Magdalene's having us here tonight. But tell you a little bit about what the Sheriff's Office does. And you'll hear from Detective Thompson a little bit more about how we work some of the complaints. But at the Sheriff's Office, we have a major crimes unit. It also has, we work anything from homicides, death investigations, sexual assaults, but we have 2 detectives dedicated completely to internet crimes against children. We could probably have about another dozen detectives working internet crimes against children and still not have enough. Some of the other folks we have, some of the other units in the Sheriff's Office, we've got some back at the table. If you need to go talk to them later on or just stop by and say hi. We've got our victim advocates. We also have a unit dedicated to sex offenders. We have over 300 sex offenders in Santa Rosa County, to where we have a couple of our professional staff folks, a sergeant and detective, dedicated solely to making sure those people are doing what they're supposed to be doing, or not doing what they're not supposed to be doing. We also have a crime analysis unit and a couple of others that all come together and work as a team to try to make sure our folks are safe. So, question from the crowd, and the kids are probably not going to appreciate that. How many of you have sons, daughters, whatnot, grandkids, kids, who do not have any electronic devices whatsoever? Ooh, nice, okay. All right, well that's good. Not that that's a negative if your kids do have electronic devices, but a little bit of advice as parents, you need to know what your kids are doing. You need to know who they're talking to online. A lot of times, kids are going to be sneaky. I know you all remember times, even though you're not going to admit it in front of your kids, when you're doing stuff in school you weren't supposed to be doing. But even if it's for not completely bad or nefarious purposes, kids could have apps that are hidden inside of other apps. Also, you need to know what your kids are saying. I know when I had a stepdaughter who was going through high school, I downloaded an app so I can find out what it was she was saying when she came home from school. One, I wanted to be like the cool stepdad, right? Who doesn't? But also to know, what they're talking about. And you can Google whatever it is, whether your kids are talking about Riz, tap, no tap, drip, anything that they're talking about. And I know I'm probably, the kids are probably laughing. Not really. No. Am I doing a good job at this? Yeah, kinda. All right. Half and half. All right. Be involved in what your kids are doing. So, who remembers growing up, and I know I'm going to age myself with this, to where in the late 80s and early 90s, if you were a teenager and you went out to a party, you could call your parents if you needed them to come pick you up with no questions asked. Does everybody remember that? Most people? I recommend you have those conversations with your kids. So, because if they get involved in a chat with someone, if they get involved in a discussion with someone, they need to be able to come to you with no questions asked and saying, I'm in trouble, I need help, I'm over my head. It does not take long. As an example, I had a coworker of mine one time used to wear a shirt when we went out in town that said, on the internet, I'm a 14-year-old girl. The awesome thing was, on the internet, he was a 14-year-old girl because, we were looking for him to get bad guys off the street. But you recommend having those conversations with your kids, with your grandkids, and having a talk to where, nothing, I don't care if it's Snapchat or what, will ever leave the internet. And, you just don't know who you're talking with online. With that, I'll turn over to Detective Thompson.
So I'm Detective Thompson. I am one of the 2 Internet Crimes Against Children detectives where my job is to solely work and investigate what's going on online. By doing that, we are part of a task force, Northwest Florida Task Force, that we partner with Okaloosa County, Escambia, Fort Walton, and okay. Can you hear me now? Is this better? Okay. So, but my job is I take in these cyber tips from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, where social media applications can send information in that meets their algorithm that something may be going on, or an image may be considered child sexual abuse material, formerly known as child pornography. My job is to go through all of those cyber tips and determine, does it meet Florida statute for me to move forward? Is this child exploitation? Is this child pornography? Are they trying to solicit from a juvenile? That's my job. Part of that, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, is like a clearinghouse where all this information comes in. Someone's concerned, if they are communicating with somebody online, parents can report it into the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and they send out what is called a cyber tip, and it goes to whichever agency it's supposed to go. The Northwest Florida ICAC Task Force, our command is actually out of Gainesville. So our area covers a huge portion of Florida. And he splits it up to which county, which agency it needs to go to. It keeps going. So since January up until August, we have received over 256 cyber tips. And that's just what's being reported online. In the last year, it's over 400 cyber tips. And that's not including the children that are coming forward within schools or the parents that are going through the phones and finding conversations that their kids shouldn't be having. With that, they break it up in different compartments. A priority E, which kind of encompasses everything, all of the cyber tips. And then you have the priority 3, where the difference is this may be a hands-on. You may have a live victim, whether it be involving family members or another student or another peer. So we have to triage. Which one are we going to work on first? We try to go in order, but that's not always feasible. If I have something that comes in and we possibly have a live victim right now, my cybercrime that I don't know who it is yet is going to go and just sit for a minute so I can find out what's going on with this victim. With that, it's broken down onto how everything has come in. You have online enticement. We had 88 of those cyber tips come in. Child sexual abuse material, 155. Unsolicited obscene material sent to a child, 7. Child sex trafficking complaints, 3. Misleading domain names, 1. Misleading words or digital images on the internet, 2. And that's, again, just in the last 8 months. With that, they provide the IP address. So in the digital world, there is a digital footprint. Everything can be tracked. So they will provide account names, IP addresses, email accounts, phone numbers, anything that you're using to log on to these social media accounts, and anything that you're registering with those accounts. And it just follow up with a bunch of paperwork. I do subpoenas, I do search warrants to try and find out who you are and who you're talking to. Out of all of that, social media platforms that are getting reported, very common. You have Snapchat. 64 of those were reported this year, so far. Instagram, Discord, Google, TikTok, Reddit, Facebook. Everything very common that most people in this room utilize. What you don't realize is, do you know who you're actually talking to? When you're on Facebook and you're getting those messages from, this beautiful 16-year-old girl or this handsome 16-year-old boy, you don't know that that's who you're really speaking with. That's my job, to find out this conversation that you're having, because it started off with, oh, I think you're attractive. Let's talk. Send me a picture. Send me another picture of you just standing up. And then the next thing you know, you're being sent a picture with your face on a nude body, and they're threatening to send it out to everybody on your social media platforms because, like in the one article, they've done their job. They know who your friends are. They know where you live, general areas. And they will threaten to send that out unless you provide them with money. And then you think that image goes away, and it doesn't. They will now use that image for the next person that they're going to exploit and say, well, I'll do to you like I did with your friend, or I'll do to you like I did with her. And it's just an ongoing cycle. With that, cybercrimes, it's not a quick process like you would think, like you've seen online or in the movies. It's a very time-consuming investigation. The fact that we get in, just in the last year, 400 cyber tips that myself, my partner, and we go within major crimes, and we have other detectives view it because we have so many come in. We have to see every single one. So that picture that some of these teenagers are sending out to this handsome boy, we see you. The pictures you're sending to the girl, we see you. Because you've met the algorithm that they think this is child pornography. Our job, we'll do the subpoenas. Well, that takes weeks to come back. We'll do the social media search warrants. That takes weeks, if not a couple of months, to come back. And then when we get this information back, we have to go through it all, not just a portion. We go through the conversations. We confirm the account information that was submitted. We see who you're talking to. We try to find the conversation that's flagged in this system for it to come in. So when it comes to these internet crimes, it's not just, oh, well, I've reported it, we'll get it done in 2 weeks. It doesn't work that way. It takes several months. It takes several weeks. And then we determine, well, are we going to do a residential search warrant on this person? In Santa Rosa County, in the last year, we have done 25 residential search warrants on suspected perpetrators. We've done over 75 social media search warrants on these accounts of people that are exploiting juveniles, that sharing child pornography to people that don't need it. And we've done just as many subpoenas to get your account information to see what's going on. The difference between when I grew up and how people are growing up now is this is a digital era, and technology is ever changing. We're trying to keep up with the times, but the faster it changes, the more we're having to do, and we're having to play catch up. But if we can prevent the kids from posting online or having parents check your kids' devices, we might be able to help society this. And that's it.
Hi. How is everybody? Thank you for that. That was all very informative, and I'm so grateful to be a part of this community and to have a friend in Savannah. Savannah is a friend. She's a colleague. She's a survivor leader in Florida who I got to know after moving here from California. I've been to the legislature with her. She is a champion, an amazing woman to stand alongside. And when she wants legislation to get done, she doesn't hire a lobbyist. She is your lobbyist. She is tough. And as I was watching that video clip, which I've seen before, I was just reminded of her power and her strength. But she said something that really resonated with me, and it was in both video clips. And I want to touch on it because I'm a survivor. I'm a survivor of child sex trafficking. And when I was 12 years old, I was kidnapped by a pimp. It wasn't talked about like that when I was kidnapped. I was the runaway. I was the troubled kid. I was the one to blame and the one to lock up. He got away with it, essentially, until he kidnapped again, until he raped again, until finally, many years later, when I would try to find more threads to my story, I would find out that he was locked up for 99 years for a 3 strikes violation in California. This life that I lived, this life that I lived when I was on the streets, when I was taken, that's where I saw the worst of society, like what Savannah was talking about. It became the norm. It became the thing that made me think I wasn't going to live to see even 14, probably not 16, definitely not 18 or 20, and surely not 30 or 40, or someone gets to guess how old I am now. No. Surely not standing here today in front of you. So I know how dark those places are, and I know how hard they are to get out of, and how many people have been left behind. The other video, the second video, Amanda, the young girl was holding up a piece of paper, and you think that's a production part of the movie. But that is actually that young girl holding up a desperate plea before she takes her own life. It's not a movie. It's not a story to be told that is like a Disney episode or even a Hallmark kind of ending. It's tragedy. And I know Susan's taken time to get to know Amanda's mom and really understand the depth of the efforts that she's under now to make her life make sense after losing her baby girl. These lives that are impacted are not just statistics, although I love that you put the numbers up the way that you did because you see it's here in your community. But every one of those numbers, if it's 1 or if it's 340, it's Carissa, it's Savannah, it's Amanda. It's all those survivors out there. They're not seen because they're in the darkest places. They're in the places only our officers, our law enforcement are really trained to go into. Now imagine all of what I just shared is happening online. That's where those dark places are. And we've let people literally into the bedrooms, which I think has already been touched on and will be talked about more, but into our car rides with our kids. They have access to them 24 hours a day. So the victimization, what I would have liked to thought when I lived and I got to college and I got to be an advocate and I got to be an attorney and I got to go out and change the world, I thought it was going to get better and better and better. Instead, what I found out was at the same time I was working for those good things, Savannah was working for those good things, Amandas were losing their lives. Kids out there were dying, and in larger and larger numbers, losing hope for their future in larger and larger numbers. So yes, I've been part of lawsuits against social media companies, lawsuits against websites, older websites like Craigslist. Used to sell, people who are my friends now, they used to have advertisements that girls were for sale. And pimps and traffickers would put them online and sell them openly. Backpage.com, City X Guide, Erotic Review, Rub Maps. All these places started popping up online in the name of free speech. And so we let these places exist. We let it get very dark. And I wish I could tell you now that we know all the tools, now that we know how to address it, now that we know how to get the IP addresses and locate someone at home, that it's going to get better. But actually, it's gotten worse. So now there are entire scam centers you might have seen on the news in various countries around the world that run, and you'll see it in sextortion as well, it's been going on, that run these operations like a corporation would against people who are vulnerable. And it doesn't matter if they're young or old. If they're going to get something from them and extort them, usually financially, they're going to get it, and they're going to ruin lives. So that is all happening at the same time that a little technological change is happening on the internet too. And any of you who are here that aren't familiar with this yet, I encourage you to learn more about it. And one of these days I'll look back in history and time and they'll say, how the heck did all those people from Gulf Breeze know about this, right? But if you have not researched and looked into Web 3 yet, what Web 3 is, it could be a very scary thing. I could sum it up like this. I could say, it's like the internet just became the dark web. The internet just became a place where it's harder to locate people because they're not registering their IP addresses or giving anyone their domain name information. The requirements and the rules have just gone down. And so that idea is about to take hold in the next 5 years or less. So it's going to be more and more decentralized, less and less regulation. And those websites that were listed, like TikTok even, Facebook, all of them, they'll become the guy down the street's social media website page. But you don't know. He doesn't wear a shirt saying, I'm the 14-year-old girl, right? He's not going to tell you that. So this is going to become more and more accessible to people to operate in this way. And so our only way forward is really educating our youth. That's why I love to see so many young people here in the audience, educating the people around youth who are taking care of them, who are protecting them, on how to protect them. And I have a little presentation that I worked with a friend of mine on that I'll go through to leave you with some tools, hopefully, so you feel empowered at the end of this. And that's the goal here. We don't want to just frighten you with blockchain technology and Web 3 and the homework assignment I just gave you. But I want to empower you to feel like I know what I'm looking for, and I know how to ask questions, and I know that my young person, the child here in my life, knows and has the language to tell me when someone is feeling like they're an unsafe person or they know that there's unsafe behavior going on, whether it's online or offline. I think you all need to have that language. I think we need to know how to talk about it. So before I get into that, and I think, do you have the clicker? May I have the power back? Thank you. So if I could just get you guys to close your eyes for 1 minute. I know it may be a little dark out there, but don't fall asleep on me, okay? But close your eyes for just a minute. And imagine just a blank slate in front of you. And then in a moment, I'm just going to say, open your eyes. And you could open your eyes. And I want you to look around and find something blue. Anything? You could turn around if you don't see anything. So name it. See it. You see anything blue? Oh, you got a blue. Okay, you got a blue. I see it now, too. Blue. Well, the idea, and these aqua blues in this area we live in the beach area, the idea of that is that if I would have asked you to name something blue before I had you close your eyes and then give you that exercise to look around, you probably couldn't just close your eyes and start naming things blue. You have to sort of look around, be thinking about blue, and that could be the thing you're focused on. So when we go through this, it's not just giving you words so you have them in a dictionary to go through a checklist. It's giving you red flags. It's giving you information to look for that you may not have had before. So don't feel bad if you didn't see it before. It's not a test of that nature. So Walking Wise is a curriculum that was built by, like I said, a friend of mine named Carla Hyman, and she is in Ohio. She's a corporate powerhouse, amazing human being who has really fought to bring education to nurses, to doctors, to people in the front lines in education, in schools, and a high-quality education with information that could be actionable for young people. So she gives the courses and the curriculum to school resource officers, to counselors, to bring it out into their schools and to adapt it the way that they see best. So she let me get my hands on some of her curriculum. And the first thing that we talked about was just the number of people who you think are impacted. And how many people, do you have like a number that you think are impacted? If I were to say, how many people are impacted by sexual abuse in their lifetime, childhood sexual abuse? Do we think it's 1 in 4, 2 in 4, 3 in 4? Half, okay. And men and women together, you're probably guessing about right. Like, so boys is about 1 in 5. It was 1 in 6, and girls is about 1 in 3. So, it's less than half. I can do math. I was a math major, but it is a predominant number. And so if you're sitting around a dinner table, if you have 4 people at that dinner table, there's probably somebody in here who is impacted. Hence the reason that there's counseling centers outside. There's people who to talk to outside. Why we want to all try to protect our children. Because the number of predators, like Angie said, they're lurking online and what we're protecting them from. So just for adults that are out there, does anybody know what PIR means? Just adults. Yes, you do? Yes? Parent in room. Did you find that out the hard way or the easy way? Like, did you have to guess, look it up? Did you know it already? You looked it up. So, these language that is, parents in room, you have to understand when you want to hide something, when you want to keep something a secret, and it's very natural to do when you're a young person, right? You're going to say things like that. So there's a whole list that I'm going to give you a lot more of them that say the same thing. And it's not that it's not okay to say that, but if a person on the other side of your child's device is asking you if there's a parent in the room, then I would suggest, looking it up, finding out more about what these acronyms are. And axis.org, A-X-I-S, axis.org, has a whole resource guide that I really appreciated as an educator who's gone around the world and done this work. It does have some faith-based components to it, but it doesn't throw the faith all over you from the beginning to the end. It's just, this is the thing that we want to know, that we have this language, again, so we can know and identify the blue that's out there. What are the red flags that are out there that we can identify? So here are some of the other acronyms that are out there. And again, just trying to go through them and think about, why would these be used? Why would somebody want to know if a parent is in the room or be asking your child that? Why do they want to talk to them when no one is around? Why would a child go to the bathroom with their phone? Something like that. Or you find this on your phone and you end up looking it up. And you have to keep up with these. So I would say going on to axis.org, not, put it in your calendar every month. I don't know if it's the 1st or the 15th, or probably not the same day you're paying bills or something, but go on it every month when you have a little bit of time. Watch some of their videos. They update them regularly. It's just regular education. It should really be a public service announcement and a program for all of us to understand, and a red flag for the kids that are out there. So if someone starts asking you those questions, I want you to think, is this a red flag? Is this something that I should be doing or not? And if somebody's asking me to hide something from my parent, is that somebody I should be talking to or not? So the whole part of this curriculum that I think is the most important is that it's very difficult to discern when someone's not in front of you. It's actually completely scientific, which Dr. Don will get into too. But it's very difficult to discern for a child because of what Dr. Don will talk about, their brain development. But also, when you're in person with somebody, you see who they actually are. But if somebody puts up false pictures, a false identity, you can't see them. So you can't use your sight, one of your senses, to judge them, to see, is this somebody that I want to be speaking to or not? They put up false images, false profiles, false language, false friends. So it's not somebody that you could trust potentially if you don't know them, if you've never seen them in person. You're already a red flag. And then the second thing is you can't smell them, can you? And smell is where we develop trust. So we would do trainings around the country with survivors. Pre-COVID, we would do these trainings all over the country. And I would say something a little strange to my colleagues and stuff. I think we haven't all smelled each other in a while, right? We haven't, like, I could hear in your voice over the phone that you're not really trusting, because these are difficult things that we're talking about. These are traumas that we would go out and train about, our own personal traumas, the traumas that they've had. We go out and train about that, and it puts up a lot of walls around people. So I would hear it on the phone, and I would say, I think we need to be around each other. I think we all need to go on a hike. Right? We need to go get a sweat out. We need to go on a retreat. We need to go do something where we could really feel like we can trust each other again. So now we're building all these trust relationships without smell, without one of our greatest senses. And I know we're not necessarily canines. We don't have that great of smell. But we do build trust through that mechanism. And when people aren't there in front of us, it's hard to say. So there's other behaviors. You don't just have to smell people to trust them. I'm not saying to do that. Be sniffing around when we leave here. But there are a few animated videos with this curriculum, and one of them this one is not available online, and I don't think it's queued up to see it tonight, but there are videos on Walking Wise, unless Angie, you have it queued up to see it tonight. If there's a way that this curriculum is presented that accesses all age groups. I stay engaged in this curriculum because it's cartoonish in terms of the characters that she creates. And I think she's going to create a character just for me, like my own little cartoon that's going to be like a ninja, I hope, right? A ninja against trafficking. But the way that she has this curriculum set up is meant to be accessible and to give us language again. And I'm just going to jump into some of the language that the video also goes over, but I'm here to animate in person. So a trustworthy person, and the trustworthy behaviors that you're looking for, and she goes into more detail in this video. I don't think anybody ever talked to me about this. I think character education when we were in school was about us and what we could do ourselves. It wasn't about our discernment and looking at other people and how to judge other people who could come into our lives. And in fact, there's been some research done that we are the sum of the 5 people that we're around the most. That's our behaviors that we get from them. That's our mannerisms. That's the way we talk. That's our ambitions. These things become our character, the people we let in close to us. So those 5 people, whether they're the ones online that you're spending the most time with, and you don't even know who you're becoming, if that's the case, right? What their goals are, what their ambitions are, or if it's somebody in your life. But we want to understand that character is developed also by the people we let in. And we can give tools for discernment, even at the early stages in life, to discuss about what trustworthy behaviors are. So is somebody reliable? Are they dependable, fair, safe, honest, respectful? It sounds like I'm asking if they went to Sunday school, right? So a friend of mine said. So it sounds like, did they develop some characters and values? And really, if you asked a young person who has, like my nephew's son, who has many friends online, if his friends online have any of these behaviors, he would not know. He would not really know, right? Any of the answers to that. So forgiving, thoughtful, caring, kind, considerate, loving, this is all evidence behaviors that you have to actually see usually in person to know if somebody could be trustworthy or not. So loyal, gentle, accountable, empathetic, consistent, compassionate. Those things that not only do we strive to become as all people in this room, but we want our young people to be able to see those things and name them, understand what they are, and say, those are the type of people I want to have close to me. If that's who I'm going to become, or people like that, then I want those people close to me in my life. So in terms of these words, again, they're like, I want to go back to them just one more time, that list. They kind of seem ambiguous and maybe even like, really, we're talking about reliable. Is that really important? And I think when you really start to think about, is it difficult to depend on them or not? Is it somebody that you can count on or not? Starting to think like, is that somebody that I want to tell some information to who might be able to help me or not? Now, this comes really, really close in my heart because the work that I do, I have to be able to rely on people like our law enforcement, people like therapists and medical doctors who are going to treat the women that I serve. I have to be able to rely on them, that they're going to do the things that they say they're going to do. Now, if they're unreliable, it doesn't mean, oh, they're a horrible person, right? But I need to be able to say to the person who's experiencing trauma, this is someone you can rely on. This is someone that you can reach out to, that you can talk to, that you can connect with, that's going to be there for you through this process. This other word, fair, right? Are they fair? I think when we're young, there's a tendency to think like, oh, I'm the favorite, so that's a good thing, right? I'm the favorite student or the favorite player or the favorite whatever it is, and that could feel like it's a good thing. But when somebody starts to collect or keep favorites, it's not a good sign of their character that they're a trustworthy person, because it means that they may put someone else's needs or wants before your own. It also may just be a red flag for all of us. If a child or a young person comes home and says somebody is playing favorites, this hit the news when I was developing this presentation. It just struck me so hard. But there was a teacher who was licensed in 3 states who actually committed a horrendous murder of 2 parents who were hiking with their 2 young girls. And these 2 young girls were in the age range of the girls that he played favorites with at school. And so it's all intents and purposes, we think, he was probably targeting those parents because he was targeting those young girls. So this was in Devil's Den in Arkansas. The parents had went on a hike during the summer and thought that, they're bringing their daughters with them. The father was attacked. Mother went and got her daughters to safety and then hid them. Just gives me chills to think about it. Went back to save her husband, and she was murdered as well. And he almost got away with it. Luckily, with the work of law enforcement, this person was identified and was arrested and is going to be held to some justice. But like Savannah said, what is justice? What is going to ever be justice for those little girls? And in terms of when they looked back at his record, what they did find was that he had been let go from one of his teaching jobs because he was playing favorites. So we take these words really lightly, but I want you to look at them a little bit more critically, especially with a story like that coming out, right? If your child comes home and says somebody's playing fair, just paying more attention to those types of things. So in terms of choices, when no one is watching, all of my school class knew the soccer coach who would buy alcohol for the students, right? We all knew who at what restaurant or who at what liquor store would sell alcohol to students, to underage people. So that, and I could guarantee, some of you adults in the room would have similar experiences from your childhood. So if you think that has changed over time, it has not. But how do you allow your children to talk about it? Not as rumors, not as sort of talking as if nothing's going to happen or if that's just the way that it is and you stay away from them. But no, something that they can possibly tell you is this person, when you're not around, they act different. They act different when you're not around. They act different when the teachers aren't around. They're acting differently with me, right? They seem to be making different choices or maybe even dangerous things that they're asking me to do or dangerous things that they're involved in. Being honest with somebody, being honest and forthright, and even when it's hard. And then if somebody's story keeps on changing, and this is something that predators would use, and especially online predators would use, right? Their stories could keep changing. Maybe they can't even keep up with their stories if there's somebody who's forced in one of those scam centers, and that's a whole nother topic we can go into. Encouraging risky behavior, so again, that drugs, alcohol, or online photos, if we're talking about online things, taking online photos and increasing the risk and increasing the stakes on that. So making sure that we understand and identify that. So inappropriate behaviors and ways that it could be talked about Is someone dishonest, uncaring, irresponsible, reckless, unkind, unloving? Things that we could say they create confusion, cause awkwardness. And this is interesting because a lot of times kids are the ones that want to say almost the soonest, victims, especially people who have been victimized, it wasn't that bad. They weren't that bad to me. Do I really want to tell? So instead, words like this might come out, or descriptions like this might come out way before you'll know if something was really, truly bad or not, because a predator knows how to make someone feel like it's their fault. Again, showing favoritism, being aggressive, and I wish I didn't have stories to go along with almost all of these words, but I do, and I know a lot of you probably do, and you could fill in the picture for some of those things. So tricky people, and I think this is okay to say too, and it's okay to say if you're a young person to your adult in your life, right? This person I'm just really not sure about yet. Like, I don't want to go overnight there, or I don't want to go on that trip. I'm just really not sure. And I think that's okay to say, and we don't allow it enough. Or if somebody's even online with them, and being honest with your parent. No, I don't know who they are. They say they're my friend or my best friend, but no, I have never seen a picture of them. I don't know what their true character is. I don't know if I could trust them. Never seen them in person, right? So the other thing is that when you confide in somebody, it's different than when somebody asks to keep a secret. So a trustworthy person is somebody you can confide in, and they would be able to use that information to get you help. That is much, much different than someone saying, let's keep this a secret. Much different. So knowing the difference between that, if somebody is actually someone you can confide in and they're a trustworthy person who will do the right thing with that information, versus someone who might take that information and go out and try to use it against you, like we saw in the video, go out and try to extort you or something like that. So feeling like you can have confidential conversations with someone is completely different than someone who wants you to keep a secret. And knowing the difference between that at a younger age is better than waiting until somebody is older or finds out when they've already told a secret that it's going to be told or shared with other people. Interestingly, when you do those online searches and you search up secret, almost every young person does know what a secret is. A secret is something that's going to be told. So if somebody is, you're having that person tell you, this is a secret, keep it a secret, just putting on your discernment and figuring out what that really means. Are you confiding in them or not? That comes through something that I love. Sorry, I'm going to take a drink too. Which is your gut brain. So I did a class the other night with my friend Alicia Tappan, who's a survivor, wrote Brave Girl Diaries, and that's a new book out here locally. And I love Alicia for everything she does, and she shares her story, and she's been in the news here locally, and she does great work. But she gets our survivor group together online from all over the country. We see each other every once in a while, go on a retreat, smell each other, right, the whole thing. So, but we were being taught by a local acupuncturist about the heart and the mind being connected. That in Chinese medicine, at least, the heart and the mind are like one part. They're not separate the way we think about them as separate things in our health. And I feel the same way about our gut sometimes and how we ignore our gut. And actually brain cells have been found in there, right? You're going to do an autopsy and find on your loved one, where was the brain cell? The brain cells were here, they're in our gut, they're connected, they help discern when something feels safe or not safe. And I don't believe we teach that enough. Again, we're teaching a lot of things about choices kids can make, but what about listening to your own body? What about knowing when something is safe or unsafe? Dr. Doan, again, with his brain analysis and his neuroscience background, will dive deeper into that. But it's really something that you have to teach a young person. It's not going to come to them that they have that ability. They have that ability to have a gut check, to have a gut feeling, and just say something doesn't feel right, and that's okay. So being able to say no and feeling empowered to say no, usually something that trustworthy people don't allow Untrustworthy, unsafe people don't allow you to do that. Trustworthy people will allow you to say no. They'll take your no. They'll understand your no, and they'll respect your no. So there's pressure that someone could feel, and when someone feels that, it's okay to report that pressure. I think a lot of times when you're a young person, you'd feel like, I'm not allowed to say something because I'll get in trouble, or that's my friend's, favorite coach or teacher or something. It's okay if you don't feel safe with that person or you don't feel safe with that behavior to say it to a trustworthy person and to be able to get distance from that. So knowing who can help you is your number one resource, your number one tool. Not the person online, the person in your actual real life. Who can help you? Who can you reach out to? That's your first line of defense. Who can you talk to? Who can you tell that can get you help? Especially if you're a young person, because I know as a young person, the first thing I did, well, I'll give you an example. When I was at Disneyland when I was 5 years old, the trip of a lifetime, Disneyland, we had about 10 kids with us, all at Disneyland, all mixed group of kids. I end up 5 years old, and my soon-to-be stepsister is 6 years old. She's with me. We end up coming off a ride, and nobody's there. Nobody's there. So we're lost. We're now children that don't have any parents attached to us, no adults, no big siblings around, nobody like that. I look at her, and I'm like, well, do you want to go on the ride again? And she says, no, where are they? Where are they? And she's just anxious. She's scared. Her gut is telling her, like, no, we're in danger. And so I got really calm, and I said, okay, we're lost. We're going to go to the lost and found and turn ourselves in. And so that's what we did. We went to the lost and found. And where you put jackets and coats, that's where my little 5-year-old brain decided, us little 5 and 6-year-olds, right? We should go to the lost and found. Somebody will find us there. So kids can put it together. I don't want to take that away from them. But the way they put it together is going to be very different than a way that an adult gets them help. So being mindful of that. They are smart. Kids are smart. Young people are smart. And we do put it together. But the way we do it might be different. So knowing who the adult and trustworthy person is that can help navigate, the long call list, the right officer to call, the right person to report to, and get you help. And then if something is online, getting it taken down from online is something that I think should be taught in all schools. I think it should be an educational requirement to know how to get something taken down offline. I really do. I'll talk to Savannah about that. So when you feel unsafe or you're in immediate danger, do all people know the number they call? Yes, 911. Okay. There's also a 988 line for, and that'll come up, I believe, too. But if a sexual predator is a family member, I think this is really important because young people, and this happened to me when I was 11. They see family dynamics of other people, and we don't want to mess that up, right? We don't want to see our friends go into foster care. We don't want to see our friends go disappear, and they'll beg and they'll plead with us not to tell. So when something happens and it's within somebody's family, who do I tell? I can't tell. You're not going to tell that if the grandfather is the abuser, telling the grandmother really isn't going to get much traction, right? Who are you going to tell if it's within a family? And having that conversation with your young person, if they find out that somebody's family member is dangerous, how are they going to talk about it? Who are they going to tell? How are they going to understand that it's actually the better thing to do for their friend, even though it feels really horrible when it's happening? We don't have these conversations enough. So if one of these people are your safe person, and this has happened again and again, it happened in Savannah's story. She had a counselor, somebody that showed up that was a trustworthy person who was very consistent for enough time that she shared some of those darkest secrets with that person and was able to get help. It happened in my life that I was able to get help because of a person at the school. It happens that somebody at the school is going to be the closest person to you that you're able to tell and get help, especially when it's within the family. If it's scary, if it's somebody that is within the household especially, what do we all do when we go over to people's houses? We log into their Wi-Fi. Do we realize how much information we're giving them when we do that? Or do we think about that? No, right? We don't think about the information we're sharing, or do they have safety? Is their stuff safe? And so kids do it too. They saw us do it. They do it too. They go in, they log in on Wi-Fi. So, okay, your young person is visiting a household. They think that there's abuse going on inside of the house, and then they go ahead and Google some helplines. If the predator is within the household and they've just joined the Wi-Fi, then they've just exposed that they're looking for help. Okay? So these are the conversations. This is the digital world that we live in, and understanding how to navigate it. So these are the hotlines if you want to take a picture of that you can contact. I was rescued at one point in my childhood, being on the streets, by calling the 9 line. It was the runaway hotline at the time. It was advertised heavily on MTV, if you don't remember. It reached me. And one day I was just so mad. I had been sent on a bus by my dad, about an 8-hour bus ride to another town. Nobody was there to pick me up. I had just the bag on my shoulder, nobody to call. And I walked for a little while, and the first place I was going to go to was to a predator's house. And I just saw a payphone first. And I said, you know what, I'm just going to call the 9 line and see what happens. And it was the first time that a cop showed up and put me in the front seat of the car and got me help, and took me to some place where I would get help and go into emergency foster care with these wonderful parents, and had a great weekend until my mom realized she might get charged for child abandonment and all the other things if she didn't come and pick me up. But that is the reality of some people, is they end up very lost and alone, and they need to have these phone numbers, these outreaches. We don't have the payphones anymore. I know there's some communities trying to get them back. You might be the person who someone asks to use their cell phone because their phone isn't safe. So knowing how to respond to those situations and how to do it safely, I think, is really important. Have you guys seen this on the news where a young girl was rescued in the back of a car? All the young people know this? Yes? Yes? I see it being motioned back here. This happened, about 2 years ago, that a young girl at a bus stop was abducted. She got away. It was attempted abduction, and she got away. But it happens in our community. It happened in Escambia County, and it happened in Pensacola, and it was terrifying, right? And to think that she might have been riding down the freeway, the 10, right, to anywhere with somebody, and that this little signal could have saved her life, and you knowing it could have saved her life. Now, when I was a kid, I would have come up to you and asked you if you had a cigarette. I wouldn't have gone like this, right? But that should also be a red flag. Maybe asked you if you could buy me alcohol, or, So I was doing all those things as a kid too, all red flags. But this one would be someone is in immediate danger, and we know how to interpret it. I'm the author of Runaway Girl, Escaping Life on the Streets, One Helping Hand at a Time. I have a documentary film that was made about some of my journey, becoming a lawyer, having an MBA. We didn't talk much about me teaching algebra in that film, but algebra does come up too, because I think that's an important part of my story, a love of math. I worked with Carla Hyman, Walking Wise, on this presentation, and if you see, she's got credentialed curriculum, so various organizations who have credentialed her, if you're in a nurse association or some sort of medical association, or if you want to see more of her curriculum. She has a free demonstration online that is a different lesson than the one that I went through here. So the lesson she has free online is Myths and Reality, and you could get it for free, walkingwise.com. And what I love about what Carla does is that she has a curriculum for the parents to work directly with their young people, with their students. She has a curriculum for the students. She has a curriculum for teachers. She has a curriculum for the school resource officers and the nurses to teach each other. So it's not only packaged in one way. And you'll see that when you go online. hope that you'll be able to download it and get some information from the website. She makes it very accessible for you. And if you have any questions, you can let me know as well and reach out to Magdalene. I'm going to leave on this note. Here are these numbers again if you didn't take a picture yet. And I hope to hear from all of you that our community is safer because you attended here tonight. Thank you.
Well, that was fantastic, Kadisa, and just want to show or tell the audience about the data that she talked about, like smelling and touching and being in front of somebody. There are brain scans that show that there is limbic resonance. So the limbic is like, the animal area of your brain that's like the lizard brain, often referred to as the, kind of like I'm scared. That brain area will light up if you're with somebody and you're meeting with them and they resonate together. And that's why that's in-person, face-to-face is actually better than virtual. And then my name is Dr. Andrew Doan, and I just want to talk about my credentials so that you can see how this path of my career has taken me to this point, and I'm lecturing about human trafficking and digital media addictions. I am an ophthalmologist by training. I have an MD and a PhD from Johns Hopkins. My PhD was probably a work of nearly 2 decades of studying the brain. So a lot of people, and I just want to throw that out there because a lot of people don't want to believe the data that I have today, and I've heard so many times because I've been on the lecture circuits around the world for about 15 years, and I hear you're just an ophthalmologist, okay? But they forget that I have a PhD in neuroscience, molecular neuroscience from Hopkins. And then, so I stacked my career. So I'm in the Navy, I'm active duty. So I spent 3 years, I took a break from ophthalmology and spent 3 years as the head of addictions and resilience research, where I specifically studied video game addiction and porn addiction for 3 years with psychiatrists and psychologists. So that's like a second residency right there. Then that wasn't enough, so I went to get an aerospace medicine residency. That's a 2-year residency to study the whole body, so I can work with aviators, and then I can be the primary care doctor for an aviation air wing, for example. And that allowed me to be the senior medical officer on a carrier, which then oversaw the care of 7,500 people, and I was in charge of that medical hospital, basically on a carrier. Okay, so now my disclaimers. I am active duty, so therefore anything I share today is my own personal opinion. It's not of the Department of Defense, Navy, government, or whatnot of any official capacity, okay? But it is a professional opinion. I have no financial interest except that I do have a YouTube channel, and I basically will send you to my YouTube channel for further study, and I am monetized, so I do make money on advertising. So if you want to help me out, watch the ads to the full and don't click away. Okay, so what I want to show here is I coined this term. Oh, you have to mention also I am a consultant for several law firms against possible litigation against media companies and video companies as a consultant for them. Okay, so I just had to throw that out there. Okay, so I coined this term called, click one more, I'm sorry. Okay, so I coined this term called digital drugs. What I want to share is, kids, anybody take drugs? Okay, good answer. Okay, so if you don't take drugs, I'm going to describe to you what happens when you do take cocaine. When you take cocaine, you increase dopamine in the brain. But cocaine works in the brain by blocking up the recycling mechanism. There's a reuptake mechanism. When the neuron secretes the dopamine, there's an uptake mechanism, like picking up the marbles after you spilled the marbles, okay? It blocks that reuptake system. So therefore, the marbles just build up on the table, and that's what gets you high on cocaine. What I mean by that is that cocaine does not increase any more dopamine in your brain. It just makes it higher levels in the nerve terminals. So that means if you can drive your dopamine in your brain by looking at porn, by playing video games, by a thought, by eating candy, right? You will get the same effect as cocaine. So as dopamine goes up in the brain, it stimulates now the hypothalamus, the pituitary, the adrenal glands and your kidneys, your gonads, okay, your sexual organs, as well as your thyroid and your endorphins. That is how cocaine gets you high. Media does the same thing. And we can use it as a drug. right? So scientists have said, okay, if it acts like a drug-like thing, maybe we can use it for pain killing. And that's what I show here, is that if you actually use VR gaming on patients, you can reduce pain by up to 62%. At the University of Washington, Dr. Hoffman can actually put video games in front of kids and burn victims, and it's so painful because you have to scrub the burns every day. Otherwise, they get these scars on their arms, and you can't move your arm anymore. So they take this brush, and they scrub your burn every day. And it's so painful, the kids cry and don't want that treatment. But when they play this game called Snow World, they look forward to their burn treatment. That is how powerful gaming and media is. And what's funny about this is I didn't really want to study porn because all my ophthalmologist friends were making fun of me. Like, Doan, how's your porn research going? Okay? So what they shared with me is that if you're looking at porn, you can probably hit a guy or a woman on the top of their head with a sledgehammer, and they probably won't even feel it, right? Because that's the methamphetamines of digital drugs. So there are benefits to gaming and media. So that's good news for the kids here. Surgeons who play video games are better surgeons than those who don't play video games because it's better for hand-eye coordination. We use video games to help with depression. So if you're depressed, play some Candy Crush, you'll feel better, okay? It's helpful for anxiety. If you're anxious, you put your kid in front of it, and guess what? They stop crying. You've seen it. Restaurants, hospital, waiting room. It's helpful for law enforcement and military to increase their lethality because it teaches them where to kill and where to shoot and how to recognize a bad guy versus a good guy. And we'll get back to that because if that works for the military and law enforcement, you put the same similar game into a child, will you get an effect? Because the Supreme Court says because it is a piece of art, it has no effect. But Schwarzenegger signed a bill that says that violent video games cannot be sold to kids because it does have that effect based on the recommendations of many, many, many scientists and researchers like myself. Just think about that thought. Okay, so the addiction cycle, though, if you drive the brain, cocaine cycle, the hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis, same if you were looking at social media or video games, the body goes, whoa, I'm going to turn that down. So they turn the thermostat down. Guess what? You got to play more and you got to see more. That is why social media has changed their algorithms. Have you noticed that Facebook changed their emojis from static faces to moving faces? That is to stimulate your dopamine system. But after you develop tolerance, what do? They match you up to argue more online. Right? They find that if your political opinion's here or your personal preference is here, they'll find someone with opposing and combine you guys to cause an explosive argument so that you spend 4 more hours on Facebook or social media so they can deliver more ads to you. Does that make sense? So how do you stop this? The problem is all this addiction cycles will lead to behavioral problems. And this is known. Dr. Jonathan Haidt is a social psychologist, wrote a book called The Anxious Generation. He blames phones and he blames the iPhone because that was when the phone had the first face-forward camera so that people can take selfies. It was made perfectly for Instagram and social media. That is when kids keep on taking pictures of themselves and comparing themselves with others, and they get online and they get hooked. But remember, if you're looking at images of yourself and other people online, it only leads to escalation because you're looking for other types of images. If you're bored of people dressed in suits, it goes to bikinis, to then skin. Does that make sense? It's biology. This is not rocket science. So what you look for is behavioral problems, lying, tantrums, you take it away, kids screaming bloody murder, isolation from friends and family. They sneak away to play games, or they sneak away to be on social media, or they sneak away from the dining room table or eat their meals real quick and run to their room. Poor academic performance, because if you're spending time on this, you're losing hours on that. which is scholar activities. Plus, you're losing sleep, because if your mind is jacked up because you were looking at something you shouldn't have been, or you're spending time on arguing on social media, you're going to spend another 2 hours laying in bed before your brain can actually wind down and rest. So the problem is, kids now are more sleep deprived than ever in the history of civilization. They also give up favorite hobbies, and then finally, anger and aggression are the outcomes. So I'm going to give you cases. These are real cases of how bad this can be. I had an 8-year-old child in my chair. Pediatrician missed why they had what they call enuresis incompresis. Enuresis is a fancy word for wetting themselves. Incompresis is soiling themselves. So I'm the ophthalmologist. I'm just checking them on a health check to make sure their glasses are okay. And I asked the question to the mom, anything else? She goes, I'm worried about this. And nobody can identify it. They had all this multi-million-dollar workup. It turns out they're playing on the iPad, on roadblocks, 8 hours a day. So of course, they're not feeling the bladder sensation or their sensation to defecate. So I said, let's just take it away and see what happens. In 1 month, everything resolved. He slept better, he did better in school, and all that bedwetting and soiling at night and daytime went away. And 3 pediatricians missed it because, as Khadisa said, if you're not looking for the blue, you're not going to see it. So that is why doctors don't know, and your doctors don't know, because they're not looking for it. All I had to ask the question is, what is your child doing? And they're saying, well, they're playing 8 hours a day on the couch, every day on that device. There was a gentleman who was bored, played Candy Crush to the point where he couldn't feel the tendon of his thumb getting whittled down, and he ruptured it. Candy Crush thumb rupture, and we made news on Good Morning America on that one. There was a case here in Pensacola. A 26-year-old avionics instructor basically was a gamer. Didn't show up after a 3-day weekend because he was sleep deprived, overslept his alarm. So then the police went to check on him. He was bleeding out on the floor because he stabbed himself to get out of work. But not only that, he played so much games because he was a full-time instructor, he was peeing and pooping in buckets because his toilet broke and he didn't have time to fix his plumbing. Then we have Daniel Petrick, 16-year-old kid who had an injury. So dad bought him an Xbox. He was from a Christian family. Dad was a pastor, didn't want him to play violent video games, but Daniel loved Halo, which is a shooter game. You shoot aliens, actually. It's a pretty, common, popular game. Dad takes away the Halo game and said, I don't want you to play this game. You can play sports or whatever. Daniel walks out to his parents one night and says, Mom, Dad, close your eyes. I got a surprise for you. Shoots mom in the head, kills her, shoots dad in the head. I don't know how miraculously his dad survived, but Daniel left his home only with the Xbox Halo game. That was it. And people deny that he was addicted to video games. When a drug addict walks away with just the bong and the pipe and the crack and the drugs, do you say, oh, I'm not sure that they're not addicted, right? So I'm just showing you the stories of how bad this addiction can be to then basically talk about how to prevent it. It starts with neuroscience. So why are your kids susceptible to this? This is oh yeah, you can see my pointer. So this is a 10-year brain study from 5 years old to 20. And it shows the maturation of the brain. Now, the human brain miraculously, on average, matures at age 25. And I know you wives out there are probably thinking your husbands haven't met that yet, right? There's hope, though. They get there. Maybe 50? No, I'm still a kid. Just I can pay my own bills now. Okay, so this is the top of the brain looking down, and this is the side of the brain. The blue areas of the brain are areas of the brain that are mature. The way neurons work is that if you don't use those neuronal passages, they get pruned away. That's why they have that saying, if you don't use it, you will lose it. However, I want to emphasize this. Your brain is not like a tabula rasa, where you can just write something on it, and if you say, oh, I don't like that, you get an eraser and then you erase it. It doesn't work that way. You're laying down fiber optic cables every minute, every hour that you spend doing a certain behavior. So it becomes permanent. So let's go to the brain here. So at age 5, you can see that the 2 areas that are most developed is the back of the brain. That's the visual cortex, controls your visual centers. This is somatic sensory. This is what you taste, feel, and move. This is why your babies love the phone. They have no idea, but the researchers actually have determined that certain colors are more attractive to your visual system. So that's why a baby wants to pick it up, because they can control their fingers and they can touch the screen and they see the pretty colors, and that's what the 2 areas of the brain that they are stimulating. However, this is the danger. It's too easy to give a tablet to a child or a phone, right? Or to give them like, Cocomelon or Miss Rachel or whatever that's popular right now, that's really fast moving and keeps their attention. Because your brain will overdevelop in an area and then prune away and lose function in another. Here's the analogy I want you to walk away with. If I gave you a dumbbell, a 20-pound dumbbell, and all I said was, okay, from now on to this day on forth, you can only use your right hand to do dumbbell curls, and that is it. That's the only exercise you can do. What will you look like when you're 80? You look like Popeye with a huge arm here, right? Or a stone crab with a big claw, and everything else would be atrophy. The brain of the child is the same. We just don't have brain scans to go, okay, you're a video game addict. Bam, what happened to your brain? They look okay, but their brain is completely warped, desiring only that game or social media or online stimulation. So then, at age 12, that's when their brain matures more, and the frontal lobe finally clicks in. The frontal lobe is where the brain says what is right, what is wrong. If I have the brakes to basically put the brakes on when I've had enough, right? Self-control. That is why also, at that age, they also talk back at you, right? Because before 12, you're a hero. Everything you do is wonderful. Everything you do is awesome. At about age 12 or 13, all of a sudden, you're weird, Dad, your mom, I don't want to walk next to you. You're at the mall, and they're like way ahead, and you have to be way back. They start thinking for themselves. That is why your children are incapable of making decisions for themselves. You got to make those decisions for them in terms of digital media and the boundaries. But even age 13, even at age 13, that's not enough because they don't fully mature until age 25, right? So what I recommend, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends no screen time at all until age 2. And if you do screen time, only FaceTime with family members. At age 2, if you can delay it to age 5, that's even better. The tech executives send their kids to Waldorf schools and delay it until 16. At Waldorf schools, they were being criticized, and they're saying, well, are the kids behind? At 16, when they got the tech, they caught up within 6 months to the tech natives, all right? But they all had these wonderful brain developments of creativity and artistry and writing abilities, as the tech natives were really good at, like Fortnite, for example, and they weren't good at anything else. And then at age 5, or 2 to 5, start introducing like maybe 1 hour video, but very slow acting video. Meaning like old school Mr. Rogers, Little House on the Prairie. Take out a stopwatch. I take out a stopwatch and I time the media. If you look at like Cocomelon, for example, and I have a video on Cocomelon on my YouTube channel, the scene changes are every 2 to 3 seconds. So in a young child, they're like, change, right? They're trained to be ADHD. And actually, Dimitri Christakis is a pediatrician researcher who says that the majority of ADHD is caused by that type of media. So you take that media away, guess what? The child becomes less ADHD, actually. And this makes sense, right? Because if I can use a tool to train a video game to train military and law enforcement to be more lethal by having them have faster reflexes by shooting bad guys on the screen, why can't your kids learn how to be ADD, looking at colors and butterflies and dinosaurs? You see what I'm saying? And then you put them in a classroom and you say, sit still and don't move. And they're like, where's the dinosaur? Where's the butterflies? This is boring. School stinks. You see what I'm saying? It's very common sense, but it's backed by neuroscience. Okay, so then at age 12, introduced like maybe 1 to 2 hours, but still slow-moving videos, educational videos, that kind of stuff. If you're a gamer, do not watch gaming videos because you're still getting a high watching other gamers play. That's the problem. So they're like, Mom, I got an hour of gaming. And then they run to YouTube and watch 5 hours of gaming videos. And then, let's go to the next slide. So what happens when this is overused? Taken together, internet addiction is associated with structural and functional changes in brain regions involving emotional processing, executive attention, decision-making, and cognitive control. Parents, raise your hands if you want your child to have absent of those skills, right? Here's the warning. If we don't act by age 16 or so, this could be permanent damage. I have seen autistic symptoms develop in kids who overuse media. Now, let me emphasize this. Not all autism or forms of autism are caused by screens, but overuse of screens will make all forms of autism worse. So what I mean by this is that there's a genetic autism, and now there's something researchers are calling a virtual autism. That's not genetic, but induced by the screens. And so I've seen it myself in my clinic because being an eye doctor, guess what? If someone has a delay in development, they come to me to make sure it's not their glasses or their visual system or something about their brain and their visual system that's preventing them to learn how to speak or act, or to be developmentally on par with their peers. But when I find out that a 2-year-old is severely autistic, is using a screen 10 hours a day, we take it away. In 6 months, that child actually drops their diagnosis of autism and is essentially normal. And I've seen an 8-year-old child who's autistic, whose parents had to take the screens away, and he would be screaming bloody murder as they're holding him for an hour. 10 years later, he was able to walk down and get his diploma and graduate as a high-functioning autistic individuals. So how many people are we missing because their brain is shrinking due to excessive use of digital media? So a lot of people say, well, Dr. Doan, you're just scaremongering. And you notice I have these QR codes too, so you can actually take this picture here. This is my video on YouTube where it teaches you how to detox your family. So a lot of people say, oh, you're just scaremongering. You don't have enough data because they want research data where I take kids and then, expose one group and not another group. That's not going to happen. We're not going to do that. No one's ever going to allow taking a twin study, for example, where you take identical twins and separate them, and then one twin gets media and the other one doesn't. And actually, one doctor had twins, and he was doesn't believe my data. And I said, okay, let's use it on your twins. And you know what he said to me? Yeah, because he wouldn't want to do it on his twins. Everyone knows that. But LA school districts did this study for us all. They purchased $1 billion worth of iPads and gave it to their high school students. Within 2 weeks, the students jailbroke the iPads and installed video games and pornography. It's just the brain. They just want higher stimuli or things that are highly stimulating in contrast to school. It's just biology. Okay, so how did I get here? So I obviously know a lot about media addiction. Opal Singleton created Million Kids. She is an awesome woman who rescues people who are trafficked, kids who are trafficked, and her organization is called Million Kids. There are 1 million kids missing at any one time around the world. It's crazy. So she came to me and she goes, your explanation of media addiction finally linked how she discovered that these predators were capturing their prey. It's through the internet, it's through the gaming, it's through the social media. And why are they doing it? Because of money. One of it is because there's addicted predators, right? The addiction that I talked to you about, where they escalate all the way to forbidden videos and forbidden images, because that's how the brain works, right? It just has to escalate into more stimulating things. That's one group, but the other group is organized crime. Because 5 kids to what she refers to as a stable, literally that's what they call it, a stable of 5 kids will generate up to $1 million a year. If we don't take action, she says that it will forever change our country. There's so much money in this that it is crazy, because it's better than drugs and weapons. And it referred to it at the beginning. Because in weapons and drugs, you can only sell it for once. But a child, on average, gets sold 12 to 18 times a day. And to the point where they pass away, we lose them, and they just go back to the internet and find them on roadblocks or the internet or the games. It's an everlasting. So this is the problem. We have kids who are addicted to more stimulating experiences because we allowed them to have unfettered access to their phones and media and gaming. They're now mixed in the same community online with these predators. See, in the past, they had to go to weird places to find the predators, or the predators had to hang out at the park or to hang out at the schools. Now they just go online, and the kids are meeting them in the back seat of your car, in their bedrooms, in your homes. So this is big money. And when there's big money, there's going to be a continual problem. And this is a powder keg for disaster if you don't take action and think that this is not real. Thank you.
Can you advance my slide? Is this it? Yeah. Hi, I'm Julie Doan. The reason why we're here actually is this kid. This is Andrew and our oldest son. This is Nicholas. He was 18 when we took this picture. We live on base, and I was watching my free show of the Blues fly over my house the other day, and I was thinking about the dreams that I had for him, and the dreams that we have for all of our children. And I wasn't ever dreaming that he would become a fighter pilot, because that wasn't in my wheelhouse. I was thinking, oh, well, maybe he'll be a doctor. He's incredibly athletic. I was like, oh, maybe he'll be a professional athlete. And he won the state championship in cross country in California. He was a highly recruited athlete. My dreams did not include him being an addict. It did not include him being addicted to pornography and video gaming. That was not on my bingo card. Our daughter found an image of Nick on his handheld gaming device. It got Wi-Fi. I did not know that. It was a naked picture of him. And we fought for him. We had to address it head on. I know that we are told to be our kids' friends, that we need to gently parent them, but there are some things we can't do gentle parenting with, and that's one of them. Pornography is you're excited over another person's lowest event in their life. Most pornography is sex trafficking. It is the vast majority of those images are without those people's consent. And it's unacceptable. And I could not look away from that. We had to address it, and we all have to address it. Horrible, horrible things start with pornography. So I want to encourage you all, if you see something that your children is doing, don't look away. Face it with them. Our friend Opal Singleton would tell people in her talks, she said, when you're talking to your children about how important they are to you, get a puzzle, like a 25-piece puzzle, and put it together and take out the centerpiece. Sit down with your child and talk to them about how important they are to you, and how if they are ever in trouble and they need you, my life will look like this puzzle with the centerpiece out. A vital piece of my life will be missing, and I need you to tell me if you're in trouble. I need you to tell me if somebody is trying to hurt you online. My son was combining his addiction, and he was also being harmed himself. He was trading his picture for other pictures. So not only was he addicted, but he was being harmed. So this happened to us in real time. So I want to encourage you, don't look away. They are not growing out of this. They're growing into this. And on the internet, these images go from bad to horrific in a click. So don't look away. Face it. Face it with your kids. Don't shame them. Help them. Find resources to help you address it, because it will not go away. It will only get worse. He is 28 now. He was 18. He's still fighting this. They're growing into it. So you have to fight it. So I have some questions that I'm going to ask our panel. But this is our heart's desire, is that y'all face these things with your families and really, really, take a hold of it. Yeah. Okay. Major. I know it's hard for you to be quiet. So what is the process once a complaint has been filed with the initial deputy?
So whenever our deputies get, a complaint or whatnot, or like, for example, Ashley was able to get something from National Center for Missing Exploited Children. If a deputy takes the complaint on the street, or it happens to come through another venue, it'll get assigned to our major crimes unit. A detective will take a look at it. First, we need to make sure that, one, we take all complaints seriously. And, we'll see if there's a crime that exists, because, we can't really investigate anything if there's not a crime, especially when it comes to, anything related to human trafficking, crimes against children. Take those pretty seriously. But as Detective Thompson mentioned earlier, some of those things take time. We have to get judicial process like subpoenas or whatnot, try to find out where the device is located. Maybe we'll do a search warrant at a house. After that, we have a unit that is just some detectives who do nothing but computer forensics. So they'll download some of those devices. And in some of those devices, we're talking about thousands, 10,000s, or maybe even 100,000 videos and images that has to be gone through. And sometimes those downloads can take a couple of weeks. And so it takes time. Whenever we find out that, hey, look, we do have a violation of Florida law, then we'll go and do an arrest, and then the judicial process begins, and trying to get that person, hopefully a lot of time.
Yeah, so just so y'all know, because of what Dr. Doan was talking about, predators online, with people with images on their phone, they're not going to find 5 images that will curl your hair. They're talking 10,000, so many images. It's not just a couple. So that must be soul sucking for the people who have to go through that.
Yeah, and videos too. I can tell you that I'm very fortunate that I work with an awesome team, And the things, not even talking about some of the other crimes or whatever that get investigated, but the things that our detectives have to see, it's not worth discussing here, but it is, it's things you wouldn't even imagine that people should not be able to see, and our folks do it daily, and they do a great job at it.
Yeah, kudos to them. So Cindy, are schools required to teach students about topics such as online safety and human trafficking?
Yes, actually they are. In the state of Florida, we have Florida Statute 1003.42, and that is required instruction. So you think you are sending your kids to school to learn to read and write and do math and learn science, and you are, and that is important, and that's critical. But there are also some other topics that in the state of Florida we are required to make sure that we educate our kids on. They're age appropriate from grades K to 12. Our younger students have 3 lessons that they have to be educated in every year, and they are appropriate by their age. Online safety, human trafficking, and substance use and abuse. And then as they get older, we add more required instruction topics. We include the online safety, human trafficking, and substance use and abuse, but we also add resiliency education. We add suicide prevention, dating violence, healthy relationships, abstinence, a wide variety of topics that we are required to find evidence-based programs or develop evidence-based programs and teach our children with those programs.
So Kadisa, what are some signs of human trafficking that we in the general public might miss?
Is this on? No. Hello. Okay. Got it. I like having control. Sorry. So I think what was really missed, and it's really sad to say, is that oftentimes as humans, we push people out who really need to be drawn in. So I was kicked out of school at a time, I think, when I should have been brought into school. I was kicked out of friends' homes because I was the bad girl with the reputation. I had a lot of red flags in my dress, my hair, my makeup, the way I was expressing myself, was saying things. When Dr. Doan was talking about the digital drugs, predators then and now also gave us real drugs to get the dopamine going, and cocaine was one of them. So hanging out with older people, friends, their parents sometimes were those exploiters that were giving us the drugs. And those type of red flags, people either want to look away, or if you have a child in the same age group, you would say, don't hang out with her, right? When really I think the responsibility is to say, let's find out what's happening with her. And people didn't ask the right questions until I had a very thick file and I became too expensive any other way, right? I was going to get locked up and sent to prison before I was 14. And that was because of just getting involved with gangs for protection, getting involved with drugs, alcohol, not being in school, right? Getting to a place where I didn't even get enrolled in school anymore. So the red flags were there. I think that, again, we want to look away. We want to say this is not happening. I moved to Florida when I was 14 to live with my dad, and I had been trafficked already when I moved to Florida, and we lived in Sarasota and Orlando, and he did not enroll me in school, but the people who saw me were the people at the grocery store, because I was the cook and I was the cleaner, and the people that saw me walking with bags of groceries 2 miles to and from the store in the heat. So I think sometimes we just drive by those things, or we don't see them, and it's hidden, again, in plain sight. So the people have to know that it's happening here. It happens in our community. victims here, survivors here, young people here who need us to reach out to them, who aren't going to know that you even exist, that you even want to help them if you're not trying to engage.
Thank you. It looks like we need to wrap it up. This event is possible because of the sponsorship of Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office and Community Life Church. We want to thank them. Magdalene's and Santa Rosa County Schools. Counselors are available. Our panelists are willing to take one-on-one answers, not on the mic. You can come up and ask questions. We're here till 8:30, answering questions individually. If you have a question, like I said, we have, the tables are well marked. If you have questions, need to speak with somebody. I want to thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. And hopefully you have some things that you have some actionable steps that you can take to protect your family. And maybe you can influence your sphere of influence and educate them. And then maybe we'll do this again sometime with Santa Rosa or who knows what. Thank you very much for being here.